got the full ijaza. Say that again? Aywa. Alhamdulillah. Khair inshallah. Are there any questions from the brothers here that are not on takfir and khuruj tonight? Father Osama.
Sheikh, when you have two majhul hadith, do they jump to Hassan al-Ghayri?
طيب. We have two hadiths, or hadith with two chains of narration, and there's majhul. Does it jump to Hasan li ghayrihi? It depends on the level of jahala. Majhul ayn or majhul hal. Some scholars say that if they're both majhul al-hal, then it could yartaqi. It could level up or jump up to Hasan li ghayrihi. And other scholars, they say there is no general rule, but it depends on the type of jahala, who's narrating from them, who they narrate from, etc., etc. What's important is, as Imam al-Dhahabi rahimahullah, he made a very truthful and prophetic statement when he said, as far as the Hasan hadith, فَلَا تَطْمَعْ, he says, then don't have any desire. Don't look forward to, don't expect any general principle. فَأَنَا عَلَى إِيَاسٍ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. He says, I've despaired from this, what? A very long time ago. In other words, the Hasan hadith is going to be flexible. And it's going to bounce and jump from scholar to scholar, discretion. This is a general rule, but here, the nature of the hadith, the method of the hadith, they're from the same country, I'll say, Hasan li ghayrihi. Even though he's majhul, this is missing. And another scholar says, no. If there's 10 of them, majhul, etc., it's da'if. And it doesn't go to Hasan li ghayrihi. So with regards to hadith Hasan li ghayrihi or li dhatihi, then there's a great deal of difference of opinion among the scholars of past and of present. And there are some things on which they agree unanimously. And those rules should be obeyed and respected and followed. And there are other things in which there is ijtihad on the principle, let alone ijtihad on the actual practice. This hadith right here, Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah, he says, Hasan. And another alim, he comes before or after Albani, he says, no. There's too many problems, too many things missing, it's not Hasan li ghayrihi. So there are things in which there's ijma', and there are things in which it can go either of the two ways. So the student of knowledge is always supposed to use his discretion. And Allah knows best. Fadl Ahmed.
So when you're at a masjid and you pray and then you leave or whatever and you pick up something and you come back, should you pray the
You're at a masjid. You make the tahiyyah. You leave, you grab something, you come back, so on and so forth. Depending on how long you're out. A couple of minutes, something quick, you had the intention of returning, labas. As far as you're out for a very long time, or you left without the intention of coming back, even if you came back in a short period of time, you make the tahiyyah again. Wallahu alam. Fadl, Abu Hussam. Wa yakum.
My question is in regard to authority. For the individual who's given authority, what are the fundamental rules they must follow according to the Sunnah?
Authority in the Sunnah. What are the fundamental rules? First and foremost is nobility comes with responsibility. There's never a time in which nobility is free from responsibility. It doesn't exist. And from nobility is authority. Allah made you a leader. Allah made you the boss, the supervisor. Allah made you the imam. Allah made you the scholar. Allah made you the ruler. That's nobility. The imam is in front of the people. You ever think about that? When you pray, everyone else is praying in rows and the imam is what? By himself. You ever think about that status? The imam is standing in front of the people every single week. Everyone, all eyes are what? That's status. There's no way you're not going to see me and notice me. You have to listen to me. Think how deep that is. You don't like me, but if you come, you what? You have to listen to what I said as status. That's nobility. No doubt. But that nobility comes with what? Heavy responsibility. So that's the first rule, is that knowing mentally, is that it doesn't come what? For free. And many leaders and many people who have authority, they think that the authority comes, yani, balash. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to do this. I can say no because I'm in authority. That's wrong. And whenever you have the attitude, a country or a household or a masjid is going to suffer. That's proven by history. Number two is to realize that the authority is supposed to be selfless. The leader is supposed to be selfless. And he's supposed to look out for the well-being of those whom he's in authority over, period. Whatever's the best for them. Not for me, my opinion, what I want, how I feel. Me, I'm not scared. I can fight to the death. Let's go. Come on. But right now, the soldiers behind me are wounded. They're tired. They're hungry. They're cold. They need to be rested. They need to be nursed. We need to regroup. People that are bleeding, they're suffering. Let's retreat. Let's go fight another day. But me, I can fight to the death. I don't care. I'm not scared of injury or death. That mindset is never the mindset of the successful general. Understand? Who has authority. Rather, he is supposed to be selfless, and he's supposed to lead or retreat, advance or retreat only based off of what's best for them, for the battle, for the war, period. Principle number three is that the authority is supposed to be humane by default. He's supposed to be kind and soft by default. That's the asl. And discipline, iron-fistedness, harsh discipline, rule, etc. That's only supposed to be the alternative. The humanity didn't work. You didn't listen. You didn't obey. You didn't respect it. So now comes what? The harshness, right? Last but not least is with regards to authority is one should know the extent of his authority. He should learn. He should study it. And he shouldn't transgress it, nor should he fall short in that. If this was in the bounds of my authority, I'm going to do it. Oh, you shouldn't do it. No, I have the right to punish this person. I have the right to reward this person, right? I'm in charge of the money at the school. We have a budget. I speak to the accountant. I says, give me such and such. I'm going to give this student a reward. But you don't have to. That's the school's money. Do I have access to the money or not? Did the student do a good job, so on and so forth? Give him a gift. So the person shouldn't be shy and implementing the boundaries of his what? Authority, but he should never, ever exceed and step out of that circle. You don't have the right to do that, to give them this money. Out of your own personal pocket, no problem. But you're not supposed to give money from the budget to this person, no matter how much Quran he memorized. That's outside of your what? Authority. You can't punish this person. That's outside of your authority. Wallahu a'lam. Father Khalid.
The scenario is you frequent the bathroom throughout the day.
You frequent what?
You frequent the bathroom
Okay.
throughout the day at your workplace. And your co-workers might not be the most hygienic or cleanest people, and they may pee on the floor, etc., etc. What we know that it is more virtuous to pray with your shoes on. So if you're walking in the bathroom all day with your shoes, and you come back to your office, and you go back to your work area, should you pray with your shoes on, or should you take your shoes off?
Pray with your shoes on, but clean your shoes off. As the hadith clearly states, look at the bottom of your shoes. So if you know that the co-workers are unhygienic, you know what you have to do. You step out of the bathroom, you wipe your shoes, you clean your shoes, you make sure you take a good walk on this carpet, clean the bottom of them without waswas, without going extreme and being obsessive or compulsive with regards to germs and filth and dirt, etc. That's what I would do. And if it's so much filth or uncleanliness, or lack of hygiene, take your shoes off. If that's going to give you more peace of mind when you pray. Allahu a'lam. Khushu' yani. Wallahu a'lam. Fadl ya akhi.
You might have answered this question before, but you might not have heard it. Is it okay to use a credit card, even though the contract mentions the interest rate?
Is it okay to use a credit card? If it's a necessity, use it. If it isn't a necessity, it isn't compulsion, but it's a need, a strong need, in which you're not being crushed, but you definitely, something is squeezing you. Use it to the best of your ability with the guidelines of paying on time, not exceeding the boundaries. If it isn't a need, if it isn't a necessity, stay away from it. But the problem with credit cards, and I don't want to get too dramatic, like so many other issues today, yani, different fatwas is a band-aid on a broken arm. You can't use credit cards. Play it. Well, financial system, money, dollars, a debit card, a bank. It's a band-aid on a broken arm. And the same applies to mortgages. People that talk about a mortgage is haram, you can't have a mortgage, traditional mortgage, okay? The mortgage is only a what? A small aspect of many other unlawful dealings and transactions when it comes to money. So until we get to the core, it's just going to happen again. And I don't want to sound insensitive. Please, may Allah forgive me, and you brothers can forgive me afterwards if I'm sounding insensitive. But the same applies to donating things to Muslims in different countries. You're giving them band-aids and food and water and sanitary things, but how about we deal with the problem and the core? And that is the country that's bombing them. The country that has invaded them, the country that's taken their land. Because in other words, a couple of months, a year to what? It's going to happen again. And if we donate thousands and thousands of boxes, cartons of supplies, all it takes is what? Boom. They blow it up. So until we get to the source of the problem, it's not, but so far we're going to go. So that's with regards to money, with regards to credit, with regards to interest, debt, usury, mortgage, insurance. We have to get to the heart. We have to stab at the heart, as they say. To stab at the heart. Go right for the center of the problem. Let's talk about money today, the world today. And then everything else will become relatively what? Easy. But of course, it's easy and it's convenient, and it's cheap to just, I'll donate some bandages. And that's a good thing, alhamdulillah, to the needy Muslims overseas. But they're being bombed. They're getting blown up. I think we should deal with that and talk about that. And Allah surely knows best. Khayr, no other questions here? Will you have Milan, Abu Sam? Fadl Sufyan.
So Sensei, this is an answer to orientals or people who want to reject hadith, right? Like, how would you respond to them? For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. Here, he didn't mention about the Quran, he mentioned the reminder. Does that, and also the Baghdad, when the Mongols attacked, they ransacked the library. So that's one of the things they say, maybe the hadith didn't ever reach. And if you look at the Salaf Saleh, they've memorized hundreds of thousands of hadith, and if you combine all the hadith, including the repeated hadith and Muslim and Muhammad and whatnot, it's not even 100,000. How do they memorize 400,000, 500,000 hadith?
Clear. Understood. With regards to some of the doubts or some of the specious arguments made against hadith, the shubuhat and the shukuk, all right, or the tashkik people make about hadiths, Allah mentions that we have sent down the dhikr and we shall preserve it, and it doesn't mention the hadiths, etc., etc. First and foremost, with regards to that ayah, the word dhikr primarily means the Quran, primarily. And some may interpret it to mean the sunnah as well. Last but not least, if Allah has preserved the sunnah, or preserved the Quran, its recitation, its meanings, its words, then it is a must, a necessary requirement that Allah preserves that which is needed for its proper preservation. And that's the sunnah, the tafsir of the Quran, the implementation of the Quran, the manifestation of the general broad rules of the Quran. And even when the Quran, alaykum salam, even when the Quran gives specific legislation, because the Quran could give general rules, or you believe, pray. Or you believe, give zakat. Or you believe, do this, do that. And oftentimes the Quran gives specific rulings with regards to a man who accuses his woman of infidelity, with regards to inheritance, with regards to a will. That's a specific ruling. The law says, don't take this, write this, don't hunt this. Whoever hunts this must pay that. That's a specific hukum. Even within that, there are many different necessary details which are only mentioned in the hadiths. And many necessary details which are only mentioned by the Salaf. Ibn Abbas, Ibn Mas'ud, how they implemented it. So for Allah to preserve this, that which is needed for that, Allah preserved as well. That's just common sense. As far as the Mongols attacking Baghdad, the siege of Baghdad, thousands and thousands, not millions of books were burnt. The Euphrates and the Tigris River turned black and blue, etc., etc., etc. The Salaf, they say that they memorized so many thousands of hadiths, millions of hadiths. We don't find none of those hadiths today of equal number, etc. then the refutation of that is, first and foremost, historians, the non-Muslim historians, they differ on whether the Mongols actually burnt Beitul Hikmah. And some historians say that they did not burn Beitul Hikmah. It wasn't burnt. The Mongols didn't set fire to the library. Whether they did or whether they didn't, just for argument's sake, that's not agreed upon historically. Secondly is, alaykum salam to Allah, no doubt, many books were burned, whether it was in Baghdad or other cities, by the Mongols or other than the Mongols. That's a fact. Many books were burnt. That's a fact. But what books were burnt? What is missing from the rulings of Islam? What's missing? The hadiths about Hajj, Zakah, Janazah, Jihad, marriage, divorce, eating, sleeping, dressing, using the bathroom, cleaning your teeth. What's missing? If you just open one hadith book, you go from beginning to end, you'll find everything. You'll find things that which you don't have enough time for. There's much more than what you may have the capacity to do. So when asked the question, what's missing? What could possibly be missing? Think of anything in life. What could take place? No hadith on, no book, no narration. So oftentimes, we mentioned this before, non-Muslims, they create their own nightmares, and then they provide the solutions for those nightmares. They create monsters that are fantasies. We mentioned this before. They talk about things that don't exist, and then they try to apply pressure, such as the concept of, the question is, can a man force his wife to have intercourse when his wife says no? Right? They try to make an issue out of this. Can a man do this or not? All right? Is it permissible? Is it lawful? So first and foremost is, we've mentioned this before, no woman in her right state of mind is going to refuse intimacy with her husband without an excuse. And no man in his right state of mind is going to force himself upon his wife with regards to intimacy unless something's wrong with him. That's a fact. You try to be friendly, you're nice with your wife, she gets an attitude problem with you. You're not just going to say, come here, shut up. What's the matter? What's going on? Is it an issue? No woman is just going to say, no, you're my husband, my lawful husband. I don't want to sleep with you. I'm not going to sleep with you unless there's a what? Something is wrong. You did something to her you don't know about. She found out about this. She's seen this. She's sick. Something. Her father, something is going to be wrong. But the non-Muslims, they come and they say, well, man can force his wife. He can beat his wife. He can force his wife to have intercourse. This is proof that Islam is brutal. So they make up something out of thin air that doesn't exist, and then they force it upon the Muslims. You get the point I'm trying to make? What does the Prophet ﷺ say about a woman who refuses to be intimate with her husband? If he calls her to his bed and she refuses, meaning without an excuse, then the angels curse her until the morning. And the narration says that Allah Azza wa Jalla, the one who's above the heavens, is angry with her. Right? So the man is going to sleep angry. She refuses him. If she refused to be in his bed, why he just what? Force her. But Hadith doesn't state that. The Hadith says that the angels curse her, meaning that the man called her, she refused, and that's what? That's all he has. You agree? You get this now? He doesn't have what? More than da'wah. إِذَا دَعَ الرَّجُلُ. When the man calls his wife and she refuses, the angels curse her. So if the man was allowed to physically force himself upon her, then there would be no need for him to go to sleep angry. Right or wrong? He would get what he wanted. And that is, shut up, I don't care what you want, you're going to give me intercourse right now. But Hadith doesn't state that. So weak-minded Muslims, they sit down and say, oh man, you know what? A man, he can have a concubine. I was watching a video the other day on YouTube. Concubines in Islam. Right? Can a man have a concubine? Is that permissible? So on and so on and so forth. All right? And then people in the comments, of course, they're going crazy. They're raping slaves. Muhammad raped slaves. Blah, 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 blah. So on and so on and so forth. Etc., etc., etc. So they force something on the Muslims which it lives in the fantasy world. That doesn't exist. A man cannot force himself upon a woman if he's going to sleep angry at nighttime. Who's stronger, the man or the woman? In most cases. Who has the key to divorce is in whose hand? The man or the woman? So if he had the right Islamically to do that, why is he going to sleep on the sofa, cursing her, making dua against her? It makes no sense. But you don't think about it like that. And you accept the premise of your enemy's fake, false, fantasy argument. And then you have to run and hide and try to defend it. So it doesn't make any sense. The hadiths are missing. What hadiths are missing? On what aspect of life? In reality, what could possibly be missing? Rather, the non-Muslims who study the hadiths, they're marveled at the wealth of hadiths. And let alone the fact that many of those ulama, about whom it is said they memorize so many hadiths, what's meant by that is different turuq and the asanid. They memorize one hadith with 50 versions, one hadith with 50 different chains, and that equal to 50 hadith. And that's how the number was so gross. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Fadal.
AM from Toronto, Canada. Salam Mufti. I'm trying to get married to a sister from a different background who I've had a sinful relationship in the past. Alhamdulillah, we have repented for our mistakes. I'm told I will be responsible for breaking ties of kinship and for harm coming my single mother's way. I am worried how I would answer to Allah if this is the case. What advice can you give me?
With regards to interracial marriage, he had a haram relationship with the girl or the sister before, etc., etc. It's a problem. May Allah help us all. What's important is if you marry someone that your parents don't approve of, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to cut the ties of kin. Rather, instead of the advice being given to the child about cutting the ties of kin and obeying the parents, advice should be given to the parents of cleansing their filthy hearts from jahiliyyah. That's a reality. And it has to be said in that manner. There's no pretty icing on the cake. It's filth. People have not let go of jahiliyyah. Bottom line. Period. We're better than you. My race is better than yours. These people are dirty. These people are this. You want to get divorced. You're going to be left with a child. That's in the mind of the parent. And at best, if it's not that bad, I don't want you to marry someone from that race. But if you marry that person, you have my blessing. A parent who doesn't have the filth of jahiliyyah in his heart or his mind, that's what he's going to say. That's a fact. And I challenge you to prove otherwise. I have no problems with other Arabs. I have no problems with Pakistanis, blacks. But of course, I want you to marry somebody from Egypt. There's nothing wrong with that. Why not? We can eat the same foods. Everything's known. I want to have a grandson that's pure Egyptian. No problem. But if you marry somebody from Lebanon, mashallah. If you married a black person or a white person or a Pakistani person and say what? Mashallah. Versus if you marry someone from Lebanon, I'm not coming to the marriage. You're a sinful son. You're cutting off the ties of kin. I'm not responsible if I never speak to you again, if I don't talk to your grandchild, etc., etc., etc. You guys see the difference or not? You agree on this or not? You agree? It's a huge difference. A black woman, she says to her son, listen, son, why you want to marry a white sister? Just marry a black sister, A lot has happened, racial tensions in the country, blah, blah, blah. It's plenty good sisters out there. Right? Versus if you bring home this white devil to my household, if you bring those mulatto kids into my house, blah, 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 blah. That's proven what? Is that black mother in her heart is what? Some serious hatred and bad feelings, hurt and pain towards white people, whether it's right or wrong. That's not the discussion. So no parent is going to talk like that unless they have filth in their hearts of jahiliyyah. And make that ultimatum. You gotta marry from this race, and if you don't, I curse you. And I banish you, and I doom you to hell, and you're a disobedient son, etc., etc., etc. This is a problem. There's a huge, widespread problem. And most people who talk about it, they don't want to deal with this reality. And that's because racism is an ugly thing. It's not something that's easy, but you have to suck it up. You have to look at it in the mirror. It's true. Just be real. You have a problem with people from Bangladesh. Bottom line. You have a problem with black people. Just be honest. And that's a step towards healing. Versus, I'm not a racist. Oh, Bilal radiallahu anhu, I'm not a racist. All the Muslims are one. Okay, sure, right. Exactly. Next question.
AA Toronto, Ontario. Salam Sheikh. What should we make of all the war tension in the world today? What do you advise us if we do indeed live to witness the malhama in our lives?
There's always been war and tension. There will always be war and tension. You read history, there's always been wars, there's always been threats of wars. Nothing is new. Next.
IC, Roseville, California, USA. Is it permissible to take a basic wudu in shower for minor impurity without the ghusl? Just a quick minimum wudu. Barakallahu feek.
It's nothing wrong with making wudu in the shower. That's fine. Faddal.
MG, Stone Mountain, Georgia. What is the ruling on using definite statements for encouragement? Like,
As long as you say inshallah, that's fine. Ahmed,
What was the diet of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
was the diet of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's a long discussion. What's important is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ate many things. And oftentimes he ate things that were easy for him to eat, that which was in front of him. And oftentimes the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's diet wasn't necessarily a spiritual diet, but it was something that he ate according to the time and the place in which he lived, with exceptions to a few things. Wallahu a'lam.
AKSTL, Minnesota. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. I am obligated to make kafara due to a broken oath. So I wanted to know if it's permissible to give the money to an online Islamic charity rather than directly to the poor.
As long as it's someone that you trust and you feel confident in, and you explain to them that it's a kafara, and they offer the services of kafara, that it's not general zakat, it's not general sadaqah, it's kafara, and you trust them, bismillah.
Initials RA from Boston, Massachusetts. How long does it normally take to memorize the Quran, and how long did it take for you?
How long does it normally take to memorize the Quran? That depends on person to person. Some people can do it a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. That depends on the amount of talent that you have, the amount of hard work you have, the amount of sincerity, the amount of ikhlas that you have, how busy or how tied up you are, etc. It depends on person to person. What's important is if you want to memorize the Quran, try to get a system, try to get a teacher, and don't think about the destination, just walk. Just stick to what your teacher tells you to do. Wallah, next question.
MS Dallas, Texas. Is it impermissible to say salam to the opposite gender?
Is it permissible to say salams to the opposite gender? MashaAllah, Khalid. MashaAllah. Barakallah feek. There's nothing wrong with saying salams to the opposite gender as long as there's no fitna. If there's fitna, avoid the salams. Wallahu alam.
AS Abbots Langley, UK. Which prayers is one allowed to read from the Mus'haf, and how should they place it during ruku and sajda? Jazakallahu khairan.
Well, yakum. Reading from the Mus'haf is allowed by certain scholars in the voluntary night prayers. If you're going to do it, and if you take that opinion, then there are many options that you have, alhamdulillah. First and foremost is they have Mus'hafs made for that. You go in certain masjids, you find imams from Egypt, Azhar, and other places. They'll have a very large mushaf with a stand in front of them. The stand is in front of them, in the front of the mihrab. They can see it, they can gently turn the page, and that's it. They don't have to touch it or hold it or put it on the ground. Simple. If you aren't that fortunate to have that, have a chair right next to you. Nothing. Or a stand or a stool right next to you. And of course, you can use your phone or tablet, which makes it even easier. Wallahu alam.
AD New York. Is that acceptable?
Next question.
AA from Mississauga, Ontario. There is a view that it is impermissible to buy caps. Would paying non-profit shelters fall?
Next question. We answered that the other night.
AV from Doha, Qatar. Is it halal to watch World Cup matches in stadiums or...
Next question. Same from the other night.
ST from Philly, PA. Do you have a recommendation for a series or documentary of some sort to listen to Fusha Arabic?
A series or documentary. I don't have a specific recommendation, unfortunately. If you are willing and capable of watching a series or a documentary, then you can watch any historic documentary. 9 out of 10 times, and this has nothing to do with the documentaries, can't watch it, music, blah, blah, blah. The companion, we're not discussing none of that. Okay? We're not saying halal or haram for what? None of that. Can you watch the Umar series? Can you watch the series of Fulan and Fulan? We're not talking about that. If you are going to watch it, then any series that you watch that's historical, in most cases, the Arabic is going to be Fusha. Period. So you're going to benefit from it. Wallahu alam.
AB from Doha, Qatar. Will Allah excuse a person having doubts about
Now, in a documentary, be mindful that in most cases, I take a part of that back. A documentary series in most cases is not going to have fusha. Unless it's someone speaking and talking as a part of the makeup of the documentary. Right. But the actual, there you go. The actual people that they interview or whatever, in most cases, they're going to be talking slang. Right? But a series, meaning acting. They're talking about this imam, this khalifa, this sahabi, this righteous person, this general. In 9 out of 10 cases, they're going to be speaking what? Fusha. The actors are going to be talking fusha. Wallahu a'lam.
AB from Doha, Qatar. Will Allah excuse a person having doubts about Islam and finding no answer and he dies that way? He's a Muslim but had major doubt which made him non-practicing.
A Muslim who has major doubt about Islam, will Allah forgive him, etc. In most cases, what people call doubts aren't doubts. 9 out of 10 times the doubt, a person says I have doubts, is waswas. It's not actual doubt. They're not doubting the deen. They're not doubting Allah. But they have excessive, compulsive thoughts that lead them to check this and what about this and such and such. It was one person that had waswas, they were about to make suicide. They tried to commit suicide, but they failed. So afterwards, they calmed down. The brother, he came and he said, let's get something to eat. And the sister, when she went to the place, she said, is this meat halal or haram? Is this zabiha or not? You get the point I'm trying to make? It's not about a doubt, but it's just the mindset, the thoughts, the waswas. It causes a person's mind to be off track. In actuality, most people who say this about themselves or have waswas, you'll find from my experiences, they're from the most sincere believers. They love Allah and His Messenger. They love Islam. And one of the reasons why they have such bad waswas is because they have such a great love for the deen. But they're missing something, or something's off, or something's disturbed, and it causes them to think, to double check, to triple check, to quadruple check, and then they call those things what? Doubts. But in actuality, they're not what? They're not doubts. As far as someone who doubts something from the core principles of Islam, something that is established, and they know that it's established, then it allows no doubt. That person, in most cases, isn't a Muslim anymore. As far as something which isn't a core value, it isn't something proven. They themselves really don't know. That's a different story. Wallahu a'lam.
OS Matthews, North Carolina. If you are in class looking at the board, but to do so you have to look past female students who are not properly covered, would that be considered not lowering your gaze?
You're in a college, you have to look at the board. In front of you are women who are improperly covered. Is that considered not lowering the gaze, etc., etc.? Yes and no. The no part is you're not looking at the women to stare into lust, inshallah. You're trying to look at the board for college. As far as the yes part, then if you have to look over and above them and you see them, you're looking at them. And it's going to lead to what it leads to. But of course, there's a difference. There is a difference. The mixing of genders, college, work, etc. We all know the problems that are included in these things. May Allah help all the Muslim youth. Ameen. Fadl ya akhi.
Can you please explain the opinions of the scholars regarding female circumcision? Because I haven't heard it before until recently.
The opinions of the scholars regarding female circumcision. Inshallah, we'll send you a link to a video. We've done a full-length video discussing what the people of knowledge have said about female circumcision, and also the differences between female circumcision and clear, flat-out mutilation. There's a difference. Even though many non-Muslims consider any type of circumcision to be mutilation, but that's wrong. Wallahu a'lam.
AB from Doha, Qatar. Can I know if someone is thinking about me?
Can you know that someone's thinking about you? This will be our last question tonight. A Muslim can have intuition. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not impossible. And a Muslim could also be a good guesser. Now, we have to understand something about soothsayers or diviners or tarot card readers. The palm lady, as the poet said, the palm lady what? She dreamt to this day. Mathalan, okay? these people who have these different professions, a big part of being a palm reader or diviner or whatever, a caster, whatever word is used, whatever the association of the culture, a medicine man, whatever term, a big part of it is being a good guesser. That's a fact. If you speak to people, gypsies, incorrect, politically incorrect term, you talk with them, they'll tell you there are some things you have to learn. There's some things that pertain to the supernatural world, jinn, spirits, ancestors, shirk. And a big portion of it, maybe the majority, is what? Is strong intuition, gut feeling. So you come into my room, walking through the beads, right? The lights are dim. The incense is burning. Naam, the crystal ball is upon my table. What's my future like? Will I live? Will I ever find true love? Will she love me? Blah, 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 blah. Give me your hand, son. Right? Oh, yes. I see many things in your future. Oh, yeah. What? Tell me. What's that? I say to you, such and such is going to happen because I can feel your nervousness or you're anxious or I can deduce. One man's deduction is another man's sorcery. Now, everyone understand this? The concept of deducing. I can look at you, I can put pieces together. And some people put pieces together better and faster than others. It may take you a day. It may take me 5 seconds to read you. Boom, boom, bang, 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 boom. You're single. You come from this type of background. You like to work out in the gym. That means you're confident or you lack confidence. Etc., 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 etc. So I can read things and put things together because of a talent. Just like those who have physical talent, beautiful, handsome, naturally strong, naturally agile, they're those who have what? A strong gut, a very powerful sense of intuition. So a person can guess better than others, faster than others, quicker than others. And then I can tell you things accordingly. Yes, you want to do this. Meaning, you're a young man, you're handsome, you smell good, your hand smells good, you're clean, you gave me extra money with the tip. I look at your shoes. In most cases, the chances of you not finding a good woman to be with in life are what? Slim. Slim to none. It's not like, you have something really wrong with you or you can put pieces together and you make a good, educated guess. So it's not impossible to guess things. It's not impossible to have intuition. And it isn't impossible for a person to be given something by Allah. But as we said before, and we'll say again, beware of waswas. Beware of overthinking things. Putting too much thought into things, feeling this person's talking about me. I know this person's thought. You don't know everything. Wallahu alam. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد جزاكم الله خيرا.